Well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Life Show. My name is Tyrone Brown Jr., and I'm so glad that you have stopped by to be with us this evening. All right. And so I want to welcome you all and thank you all so much for joining us. Look, for those of you that are joining us on YouTube, on Twitter, as well as Facebook, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Look, before we get into the show tonight, I just want to send a shout out to everyone that continues to support us. I just want to let you know that as of Friday, the Life Show has experienced now 2 years flowing, growing, and being productive. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all of you that continue to support us. It's definitely a privilege and honor and a pleasure to have you on board this evening. And I got a special guest. Well, he might be special to y'all. He's special to me too. All right. This is my brother, my blood brother. Yep, we grew up in the same house right there on 12th and Johnson in the city of Gary, Indiana. All right. And so, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear from him, but also it is definitely a special privilege because we are also streaming live on Hoosier Heat Radio. So for those of you that you are not able to see us on either one of those media streams, you can now join us on Hoosier Heat Radio right now. All you have to do is download that free Hoosier Heat Radio app, and you can tune in right now. That's what I meant. R-A-T, right now. All right, so look, we got our water up in here. We got our gum up in here. You know, we don't want nobody, eyebrows burning off. You know, if you're talking to, you ate some red onions or whatever you ate. So we got our refreshments in here. And so, look, we want to thank you for tuning in. For Keith Brown, look, thank you. Thank you, bro. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look, we appreciate all of you. Look, before we get into this interview, look, all I will say is scratch all that like stuff. Look, love this, comment, and share. Okay? Love this, comment, and share. We're getting ready to get right into the heart of the interview. And I know y'all been waiting on this, okay, but it's right now. All right. And so the interview is live right at this minute. And so I'm so thankful for my brother coming in to do this interview tonight. And so with all of that said and done, look, I'm going to just introduce, matter of fact, he's going to introduce himself. Anthony, what's cracking, man?
Hello, everyone. First of all, congratulations, brother. 2 years, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Like developing things and starting it from scratch.
Yeah.
And having to drive things when when you don't have any momentum behind you.
Yeah.
And when you're having to do all of that yourself.
Yeah.
And you're having to make ways out of, when you don't have a way and you're having to, be creative in how you develop things. It's phenomenal. So,
yeah.
A big congrats to you on that.
I appreciate that, man. And this is all stretched from our raising. And I ain't gonna spill too well. I done spilled too much already. So Anthony, you can go ahead and tell your part of the story and tell all of the ladies and gentlemen what's going on.
So where do you want me to start?
Well, start from our raising. We can start there. Well, where it all started, and then what we're gonna do is we'll start from the raising, and then we're gonna go to your education.
Okay, definitely. So for those that may or may not know, I mean, again, we all grew up, we were good adults.
Yep.
It was four of us, well, five of us. Four of us, we grew up on 12th and Johnson. We slept, all four of us in the same bed.
Yep.
And our baby sister, Tashina, she slept because she was a newborn. She had slept with my parents. And
right.
So at the age of 11, we moved to, or at least for me, we had moved to 11 to Maryville when I was 11.
Yeah.
And so coming from the Gary, Indiana school system to the Maryville school system, it was just drastically different. To go from, at least for myself, from making the honor roll nonstop.
Yeah.
And then getting to the Maryville school system. And the very first year that we went to Maryville, that was the very first year I had to go to summer school.
Yep.
Because I failed science.
Yep.
And it was science and social studies. And again, the curriculum was just different.
Yeah, it was.
And it was different in the context that the teachers, they put the responsibility on you.
Yep.
If you wanted to be successful or not.
Definitely.
And so that's how, and I think that it requires you as an individual to grow up. You're going to either make the decision to succeed or you're going to keep being handheld. And I think that was what was taking place with where we were at.
Yep.
And so, I had to, you have to step up.
Yeah.
And so, after a couple of years in the Maryville school system, I started making the honor roll.
Yep.
And coming out of high school, I graduated college. I graduated in the top, maybe like 10% of my class.
Yep.
And a lot of people, they don't know this about me, but coming like after high school, because we didn't, very few of us had any aspirations of going to college.
Yep.
And so I actually spoke to Dad about what should I do after high school.
Yeah.
And because, at least for myself, I had only seen him work at the mill in the blue collar context. He told me this. He said, son, if you don't have to go there, don't go.
Wow.
He said, with your mindset, with as creative as you are, with as intelligent as you are, you have the ability to do so much more.
Sure.
And I think that after that, again, this was something else that they didn't tell me to do, but both him and Mom, they actually went on a vacation.
Yep.
And after they went on vacation, I actually drove to college and I enrolled myself to college, without their help. I actually used, and I don't know, after that moment, I think for me, I had to, it was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you take yourself out of your own comfort zone.
Right.
And you make the decisions for your life at 18 and 19 years of age. And so, for myself, as an 18 or 19-year-old kid, I had to make the decision to say, this college tuition is on me.
Yep.
And if I don't pay that, then that's my responsibility.
Sure.
And to make the decision to get up and go to school and to do the work without no one else telling you. And so that's how it all started.
Yeah. But see, I think people, they get it misconstrued because they say, well, we see you guys as, a certain type where you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and they often make misconceptions about who we are and what we are all about. But I think growing up in the city of Gary in a 2-bedroom house that we didn't have much. Matter of fact, we had nothing.
That's right.
I mean, our mom had to sew clothes, and a lot of times we went on the hustle selling candy and trying to make things happen to where now we could afford different things because we did not have.
Yeah. That's all I even tell you this true story. The very first pair of brand new Jordans I actually just bought a week ago. My very first pair of brand new Jordans.
Oh my God.
What people don't realize is that there was a pair of Jordans that I did have growing up, and like mom actually got them from Goodwill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my very first pair of Jordans, I literally just bought a week ago.
Wow.
And again, it's just, you know, we didn't have much.
Yeah.
But again, like during those times, you don't really know what you don't have.
Right.
You know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And one thing that I did realize is that we saw other people with certain things.
Sure.
And so I think that gave us the drive, the passion and the momentum to chase after things. But later on in life, the why became.
Yep.
You know, we had the drive and we knew what we wanted, but at least for myself, I didn't know
how to get it.
Well, I think that when the why is there, and that's the reason we do what we do, but when that why is there, then you find out how to get there.
Sure.
And I think that's what happened to me.
Well, again, look, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Life Show. My name is Tyrone Brown Jr. And of course, we're doing an interview with my little brother. And I really can't call him my little brother because he's bigger than me. You know, he's bigger than me. Well, he's taller than me. But here it is, you know, and you graduated valedictorian of high school. So you went in to school, to the Maryville School Corporation, and you were having a hard time, you know, the first couple of years, you know, to where you really didn't understand what you wanted to do and where you wanted to go, but all you knew that this was hard.
Yeah, so and I think that's the challenge of where we come from, and candidly, not just for myself, but for many of us, especially, you know, coming from a minority background,
Yep.
or being minorities, and particularly African American in this country, we don't have much.
Yep.
And for those that don't know, we are Black people. We represent 13% of this country's population.
Yep.
And we only have 1% of the wealth. This is 2022.
Tell them.
And the part that many don't realize is that in 1863, during the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, Black wealth in the United States was only 0.5%, which means that from 1863 to 2022, Black wealth has only increased a 0.5%.
Yeah.
Like, and when you think about that,
that is drastic.
It just shows you that the needle has barely budged.
It hasn't.
The needle has barely budged in 160 something odd years.
Right.
And because of that, we as a race, collectively and individually, we literally have to go after and pursue things ourselves with almost little to no help at all.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't have trust funds that can be passed down from one generation to the next.
True.
We don't have college funds.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, coming out of 243, 44 years of slavery, and then another 100 or so years, or several years of Reconstruction, and then another 100 or so years of Jim Crow, and then the Civil Rights era, the equal footing perspective has only been in place for maybe 2 decades.
If that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 2 decades, because, you know, the 2008 real estate crisis gutted about 45% of Black wealth.
Sure.
So you're talking about maybe 15 years.
Wow.
Maybe 15 years where things are somewhat are being put on equal footing when it comes to us as a race and others. So, I mean, even throughout my entire college career, in pain my own college tuition every single month.
Yeah.
I do remember Mama helping me with tuition one time.
Yeah.
She gave me $300 one time.
Yeah.
For 1 month. But after that, the other 3 to 4 years, I had to pay for it out of my own pocket.
So here it is, number one. Now, I find this story intriguing, even though I know the story. Here it is, grew up in poverty, had to enroll yourself in college, had to go through the changing from Gary to Maryville schools, then excelling to a rate where you now graduate valedictorian of your high school class of Maryville. Then on top of that, to then after high school, now you pay for college. And Mama's help only once.
Right.
Throughout your entire college or collegiate career.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing. You don't just have a bachelor's. You don't just have a bachelor's. You don't just have a master's. You have a doctorate.
Right.
So, can you tell us the progression of that?
Like I said, I think it was, there is a perspective that many often say that many in this country, many of us, we're schooled.
Yeah.
And then very few of us are actually educated.
Yep.
And so I realized that regardless of what I was studying in college,
yeah,
the greatest amount of education that I received was literally just through my own individual studying, because the things that we learn, the things that we as a people that we need to learn are not being taught in a normal everyday curriculum.
Yeah.
And so for me, like my education, it was just, it's a part of life.
Yeah.
And I think that if we are to be successful at anything, it has to be a way of life.
Yeah.
So for example, exercise and working out is not something you do, it's a way of life.
Right.
Learning, like if you are going to know anything, it has to be a way of life. It can't just be something that you do when it feels good. It has to be something that you do every single day.
Yep.
And that's with everything.
Yeah.
And so I read just as much today as I did, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I learned, as a matter of fact, I do so more.
Wow.
Because in doing so, one thing that I've discovered is that I believe it was Socrates who said that in all that I know is that I know nothing. Because when you learn, like when you're interested in understanding why things happen, when you're interested in learning about culture and the things that you are invested in, and you're reading material, and you see what's called a source that's cited, then you go and you pick up that book.
Yep.
And you see 3 or 4 different other sources, and then you go and pick up 3 or 4 other books.
Yep.
And then sooner or later you look up, it's like a domino effect.
It is.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. And now you have your doctor's degree.
Yep.
What is your doctor's degree?
Computer science and analytics.
Computer science and analytics. And what is the scope of your development as far as your degree?
And so it's particularly into an area of engineering. And when I say the area of engineering, there is like computer science in this day and age. It's like talking about the ocean.
Sure.
There are a variation of areas, and of course, because of the day and age that we're living in, computer science has evolved into its own. It's evolved into its own science, and it has developed its own nomenclature.
Yeah.
So you can be into an area of computer science and you can understand data analytics.
Okay.
Or you can understand engineering and how hardware works, or an area of computer science to where you understand data science.
Okay.
Or even, an area of electromagnetics, or even statistical probability.
Yes.
And so all of these are just very, very small areas of computer science, I should say of engineering, with under the umbrella of computer science. And so what I did was, so strangely, as I got into my career, I actually started to dislike technology. And the reason that I started to dislike technology is because at a time, technology was changing slowly. And then after we passed or got into the new millennium and we passed the year 2000, I realized that technology started to drastically change. And the moment a new piece of technology came out, you had to start learning about something else.
Sure.
And so after that, I wanted to get out of it, but I didn't know how to. And I always had an analytical mindset. I understood strategy and logic, process. And so I just needed to know how to bridge the gap between my educational background to, I should say, my schooling background into that of what I truly wanted to study, the things that I was naturally good at.
Yeah.
And it's almost like being in a room that's completely dark.
Yeah.
And you don't know how large the room is.
Right.
You don't know anything that's inside of the room. And so you're basically like filling around in the dark.
Right.
To see what makes sense to you.
And here it is. Now, you have this background of computer science. Now, you go from that into the area that you're in now.
Correct.
You started disliking technology and it pushed you into another area.
Yep.
What area are you in now?
So now I'm into an area of what's called like global logistics strategy, planning and design. And so what that does is, so currently I work for a company by the name of Intuitive.
Okay.
And so I run a lot of global processes, strategy, design. So if you've ever been at a major corporation and you are looking to understand how, and not just how, but why they do things at a global scale, it's typically someone who is a think tank type of person. They're using their brain and they're thinking of strategy and logic and process. They are determining what's called value stream mapping, where they're understanding what's called value added time versus non-value added time. Understanding the differences between those two is what's called process cycle efficiency. So if, let's say, during an entire process of, let's say, 480 minutes or 430 minutes, and during that entire process, something is actually it's sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
That's called non-value added time. Something where something is actually effective during that process. That's value added time. Taking those differences and determining your process cycle efficiency, you would have what's called, you would have a determination of, let's say, 36%. Which means that during that entire process, the other, the other 70 something percent or 63% of that time, literally nothing is happening. And so, in understanding that global process, what can we do to either decrease the non-value added time or to either increase the value added time to make the process cycle efficiency much more effective? So you would ultimately improve that from, let's say, 36% up to 60 or 70%. So things like that is what I do, and I became really good at it at United Airlines, where I was a senior portfolio manager, and essentially anywhere on the globe where there was a United Club or Polaris Lounge, I was responsible for the strategy, the design, the build for how we would repair, refresh, and build new and existing clubs. Nice. And it's extremely political, but those were the things that I was really good at, is making sense out of things that at a former time did not make sense out of.
Man, now here it is. You are a project manager. What does that mean?
Well, I used to be a project manager years ago. So I went from being a project manager probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so what that does is it talks about, or it gets into the realm of understanding process, understanding, like if there's something that needs to be done, understanding initiation, planning, design, closing, understanding key stakeholders.
Yeah.
And so I was a project manager for about 5 years. And then I went from being a project manager to being a PMO director. And so at that level, what I was doing was I was establishing a lot of governance.
Yeah.
Meaning that at a very high level, if something is to be changed, if something is to be approved, what does that approval body look like? Who are the approval bodies or individuals to sign off on whatever is being changed?
Okay.
How do we establish change control? Meaning that if something is to be changed, we have to first implement what's called a spike.
Okay.
A spike. A spike goes into understanding all of the variances of that change, how much it's going to cost. If there's going to be a change in schedule, budget, who it's going to impact, so all of those things. And so I did that for about 2 years. And then I was made an offer from United Airlines. I was a senior portfolio manager, meaning that you are running. So for some context, at a very low level, there is a project, meaning every single club or lounge at United, that's a single project.
Yeah.
Then above that is what's called a program or program manager.
Okay.
And so if you're running programs, it's individual projects governed under one program.
Okay.
So for example, at Dulles.
Yeah.
And so Dulles Airport has a series of clubs and lounges. And so that single airport has 3 to 4 different clubs.
Okay.
That's treated as individual projects.
Got it.
And so above that program is what you would call a portfolio.
Got it.
And so under the portfolio, it's a series of programs and projects. Wow. And so at any given time at United Airlines, there was somewhere between 28 and 30 active projects slash programs happening at the same time.
Wow.
And so now I've actually moved into the realm of being a director.
Okay.
And so as being a director, you're actually helping and you're supporting other program managers, other portfolio managers, and other project managers, helping them make decisions at the enterprise level and things that impact our enterprise across the, not just across the country, but across the globe. Yep.
Wow, man, that's awesome, man. And I'm so proud of you. And one of the reasons why I brought you on to interview, not just because you're my brother, but because you're so right for this time that the world is in. Because a lot of people, they have the excuse, well, I can't do it because I don't have this or I don't have that. But you actually made something happen out of the situation that you were in. And so not only are you a director, but you haven't published it yet, but you have written a book. And I keep on tagging you like, man, when you gonna release this thing? Not only that, he's also written a movie to where it is being shot And I'm telling y'all better be on the lookout for this dude, because again, there's so much going on. There's so much more that meets the eye with you. Here it is. Your book is a novel that you've written, and man, I don't see why it's not on bookshelves immediately. It needs to be out there so people can soak up the knowledge that you have, man. And I can't wait till you finally publish your book.
Yeah, that's and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm actually in the process of wrapping things up. One thing that I realized, and sort of going back to the domino effect of learning.
Yeah.
Like at least for myself, I'm an avid reader and learner, and so when I read, sometimes I'll buy, 5, 6, 7, 8 books at a time.
Yeah.
And I'll go through them, and every time I go through them, if there is a piece of knowledge that I need to call out, I'll take that part and I'll include it within the book that I've been drafting for now well over a decade.
I know.
So right now, the book that I'm on out, it is, and I'm actually almost done with it. It's by Dr. Edward Baptist, PhD from Columbia University, and the name of the book is "The Have Has Never Been Told."
Yeah.
And the book basically shows how Black people built this country.
Yeah.
Like, and the reason it says that, well, it's a segue to the fact that 51%, like between the years of 1850 and 1860, 51% of this entire country's economic exports was cotton.
Yep.
And 96% of that cotton was picked by slaves.
By Black people.
And like, even in addition to that, literally 20%.
Yeah.
Literally 20%, or 1/5 of all wealth in this country was capitalized in slaves as property.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot that we did between 1619 and 1865, and candidly, we're still doing it today, because a lot of what we have today is being driven by Black excellence, Black creativity, Black talent, even the NFL itself. I know that that there was a recent discussion on Mellody Hobson being a minority owner of a football team, but we still don't have any majority owners.
Right.
There's not a single majority owner or a single NFL or a single Black NFL owner of a football team. And over 70% of the league is dominated by Black people.
Yeah. And now here is, not only are you a person that reads and leads in your area of life, but I want you to actually highlight the movie that you wrote. Now, there are trailers that are out that you produced. And so I want you to talk about, because people need to know exactly what's on your mind in order to release a movie like this. So can you talk about this movie and, where the concept came and where it is right now as far as the vetting process?
Sure. So there are some parts that I can share. A good portion of it I can share. There's a very small piece that I cannot share because, as you said, it's being shot by a major brand.
Right.
But I actually came up with the idea back in 2014, early February 2014. And as you can see, we're talking about 8 years.
Yep.
The driving force behind that, and as you know, I've always been big on Black excellence. And we, as a people, anytime we need to get something done, especially from the financial element,
Yep.
we have to go through someone that does not look like us.
There you go.
And anything beyond, just as we call it, anything beyond like restaurant money. If we're referring to bank money, we typically have to go through someone that does not look like us.
Sure.
Because again, we don't own a lot of resources in this
Right.
country. We have very little wealth.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what we do is based on networking, and we're constantly tapping people who really don't have much just to help with a very little.
Right.
So the very first part of the film, it required me to spend almost a year just researching the story.
Okay.
And it's researching, learning about O.W. Gurley,
Yeah.
learning about Dr. A.C. Jackson, who was noted as the most able Negro surgeon in the country,
Yeah.
for the Mayo brothers.
Yeah.
Learning about those who had businesses during that time frame. And so I even dug a bit deeper in understanding what the quote unquote climatology was like during that time, and what the geographical structure of the Greenwood district of Tulsa was like, meaning that where the streets were, like what was considered north or south, what were the main streets, etc., the whole nine. And so after I did that, then I also had to educate myself on script writing structure.
Sure.
Meaning that, and for those of you who are actually interested in writing films for television or even the major motion picture, you cannot just write the story, meaning that it has to fit a particular format.
Yes, sir.
That Hollywood has to, that has to be adopted to the Hollywood structure.
Right. Right.
And so I had to learn that, and there was a book that I had to purchase. It was called I think it's called the 531 script writing format.
Yeah.
And so I read a few others, but I read some of these books almost overnight.
Yeah.
I flew through them.
Yeah.
And what I had to do was I had to take the real story and the way that Hollywood likes their stories formatted, and I had to mesh the two.
Yep.
Which means that I had to take about, out of 100% of the story, a great percentage of it is factual.
Yeah.
But I had to, Hollywood up.
Yeah.
Mix
in.
About another 20% or so.
Right.
And that was some of the major, as they call it, there's the protagonist and then the antagonist.
Yeah.
And the antagonist I had to create out of thin air, individuals that an audience could feel and they could touch and they could ultimately hate.
Yeah.
And so that was, that is the antagonist. The protagonist, these are characters that build a relationship with the audience. And when watching as they call it, the build and the setup of the story, you can watch it and you can begin to develop a relationship and see a lot of yourself in them, to where you can begin to quote unquote love them. And it's a lot of psychological development when writing. And so that's what I had to do. And so long story short, after creating that and I had the story, it was just entirely too long. It was around just over 3 hours. And again, fitting that Hollywood structure. Great films, you should never, especially being a rookie writer, you should never try to have a film no more than 2 hours long. So I had to start cutting it. And I had to keep cutting it, but I had to cut it in a way where you did not lose the story's integrity. And so I had to find portions where I could cut. And then if I did cut those portions, I had to make sure that the characters in those scenes that I had to cut did not impact any other area within the film or the script.
Story,
And so I mean, as you can see, it sort of feeds back into, my area of expertise in strategy, logic, logistics. And so after I had it down to 2 hours, and again, we're talking about years in and going through this process. And so after I had it down to just under 2 hours, in Hollywood, for those who don't know, there is a company that grades your script.
Yeah.
And when they grade your script, these are professionals who have been in the industry for years. And what they'll do is they'll take your script and they'll grade it on things like setting, plot, content, dialogue. Yeah. Meaning that if you're writing a film, and it has, let's say, an 1800 storyline, why are you using 2020? I should say a 2020 dialect from this country. And so, like, all of those things matter. Sure. So if you're writing a film, again, based in the year 1800 and you're in London, why are you using a 2022 United States dialect? So things like that. And so the very first time that I had it graded, I received a 6. And so, so actually, that was actually pretty good.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was pretty good for a first time submission. Yeah. And so, I went back. They give you feedback, and what things that you can do to make it better.
Okay.
And so, I went back to the drawing board, and I got back to writing.
Sure.
And tweaking and adjusting and cutting out some more scenes to allow the story to build much more effectively. Yeah. And I came back, and the next time I came back, I got a 7. And I also found out by one of my colleagues that the company that do it, as a matter of fact, the name of the company is called The Blacklist. They're in LA, but this company has never given any script anything more than an 8. So I actually did very well the first and second time around. Yeah. And so, but I was still shooting for the 8.
Okay.
And so I went back to the drawing board a third time. I made some further revisions and some tweaks, and allowed the story to further build. And I even created some areas within the script or the film where I further built a connection with an audience, so that, again, those like yourself and myself, and even women, who are, who have husbands, and who's on the dating market, and they're coming up and they're even starting their own businesses, to where they can see themselves in the film, to where they can say, hey, I'm doing something just like this, and to see themselves and to put themselves in that person's shoes, and to see someone who's jealous simply because of their success.
Sure.
And one thing that we have to realize is that we're talking about the early 1900s.
Sure.
This is barely 50 years post-slavery. 50 years to go from having next to nothing to 50 years post-slavery to having an entire community with wealth created and systematically supporting other businesses, and to see something like this, and for you to put yourself in their shoes, to say that within a very short period of time we've built this much wealth, and to have someone else to destroy it, that hits home.
And so here it is. You basically gave the story away, but what is the story hinging on in history? What event is the story hinging on in history?
So the actual events.
Correct.
Yeah. So again, like as I stated, 50 years post slavery, or even prior to that, because the community was destroyed around about 50 years post-slavery. So you're talking about a small community of between 10 and 13,000 who had, within a very short period of time, built wealth. And to show you to give you some context towards the type of wealth that this community had built.
Yep.
The entire state of Oklahoma,
Yep.
the entire state owned 2 airplanes. Like the entire state.
Say that.
This small community owned 6.
Say that, man.
I mean, and when you think about that, an entire state owning 2 and then this small community owning 6, it shows you the type of wealth that they created within a very short period of time. I mean, they had their own banks, their own grocery stores, their own school systems.
Yep.
They had their own churches. And as a matter of fact, this community, they were so wealthy that non-Black people or white people would actually come from outside of the city into the city looking for their services to help them with their business.
Correct.
Like, that's how wealthy this community was. And so during the Memorial Day weekend of 1921, it was all destroyed in less than 16 hours. And when you think about how something is destroyed, this was government sponsored.
Sure.
Meaning that you had government officials that literally allowed them, allowed whites to come into their town and destroy everything, not just destroy, but literally to take what they had and to bring them back to their own communities.
Yep.
It shows you the things that took place. The telephone lines.
Yep.
You had government officials and county commissioners, etc., who literally had outside phone lines cut.
Yep.
So that those inside of the community,
they couldn't reach out.
They couldn't call outside.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, these were things that government officials did. And ironically enough, so after, in the aftermath, there was the government stepped in, and of course, after mobilizing the National Guard, the government stepped in and requested, that, there'd be an investigation.
Sure.
And the funny thing, it's actually documented in history as well. The government told all of the Black people that had lost valuables, businesses, etc. And they said to them that, hey, if you want to file a report, the things that you lost, submit a claim. And it's documented that over 1,500 claims were submitted.
Okay.
The interesting part is, of all of the 1,500, of all the claims that were submitted, again, you're talking about over 1,500, only one was paid, and that was to a white man who actually owned a gun shop, who had given ammo to other white people to allow them to come in and kill and lynch Black people.
Yep. So we're talking about a government cover-up.
Well, candidly, you can't say that it's a government cover-up because they did it in plain sight.
In plain sight and broad daylight.
Yeah, and they just never.
They said, "Well, we don't got to answer to nobody."
Yeah, and that's sort of been the case historically, where anytime there are major, anytime there are major issues that come from other races, we as Black people or in other groups, minority groups, we've always had to adjust and reposition ourselves.
Yep.
And so it's stuff that has happened historically, and candidly, it sort of still happens today.
Wow, man, this is something else. And then again, of course, you're writing. You wrote the movie, and hopefully within the next 6 months to a year is going to be hitting the big screen.
Yep.
And man, it's going to be phenomenal to see that movie hit the screen, because I really, to tell you the truth, I really can't wait for it. Not so much because it's you, my brother, but it's history involved, and it's revolving around real life, true factual events.
Yep.
And so now that's what is going on, and it's being vetted again, and Man, this is phenomenal. Again, look, ladies and gentlemen, this is my brother, my blood brother, Anthony Brown, in the Life Show studio for the first time, man, doing an interview. Now, he's been to my house when I had the studio set up in my house, and he saw the setup. This is something totally different than what we had set up in the house. But again, this is major. This is major. Man, people that don't know you in a downward spiral and you think that there's no hope. Look, this is the story to listen to. This is real life. And this is what actually the Life Show is all about. Hinging off of real life situations. This is not no throw together. This is not I'm telling you half truth and half lie. This is all real life. And man, I'm proud of you, bro.
Proud of you too. I mean, I say this all the time, that I'm proud of not just like all of my siblings, because everyone is like, we're all driven for something, and there's a why behind why we have to drive.
Yes.
There's a why behind it.
It really is.
And the thing is, and it's not an easy thing,
no,
but it's definitely worth it.
It is.
I mean, it's worth it, and I mean, for others to know, like, it takes time.
Yeah.
Like, there's no expiration date on success. As they say, like, success, it is never owned. It's only rented, and the rent is due daily. Like, no one owns success.
That's right.
That's anything that you do, it has to be an everyday thing where you're shelling out that rent.
Definitely. Well, again, look, you have shared your wisdom, you have shared your insight, as well as your gifts with our audience. Man, look, thank you so much for coming in, sharing with us. And this ain't the last time, man. Look, I got a surprise. I'm gonna wait. And we gonna share the surprise together. Okay, we gonna share the surprise on down the road. We can't do it right now, but look, there is a surprise coming. Y'all don't want to miss it. Anthony, any final words that you would like to say?
No, I mean, it's like I said, it's like, whatever we do, it has to come from within.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of us, unfortunately, we just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So get with people that's like-minded.
There you go.
Like, it's, you get with people that's like-minded. As the saying goes, you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most.
Yes, sir.
And it's true. And there's a statement that people only change, for the most part, in one of 2 ways. Yeah. It is the people that you hang around, or the books that you read.
Yes.
And because we don't really, most of us don't hang around with people that's drastically different from us.
Right.
So we continue in this cycle of just being like the very people that we hang around, and they're like us.
You're right. Absolutely right.
So for me, I just think that, we were lucky and blessed enough to be around each other.
Yeah.
And we all have drives. We all are inspired from each other.
Sure.
Like, your success, it inspires me to keep working hard.
Sure.
Our other siblings, their success, it inspires us to keep working hard and just keep learning.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I keep learning because, if you really think about this, every single book that I've read, every single book that I read, you are learning and you're grasping the things that they've learned. It's taken them 10, 20, 30 years to capture.
Yeah.
And to engulf in a single book, and you're getting that knowledge in a matter of, weeks to months.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if there's anything, I would just say, hang around the right people.
Yeah.
And read the right books.
Man, that's good information right there. Again, look, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Life Show. My name is Tyrone Brown Jr., and I have been in here with my guest, my brother, Anthony Brown. Look, you all be peaceful, stay encouraged, don't let nobody stop you from the goal that you're trying to reach. We get ready to get up out of here. Until next time, peace.